Lovely. Thank you very much, Kenil, and thank you very much, everyone, for having me here. And I pray that the Lord may grant us all favor today. I must say that this was a rather interesting chapter, and some things I read, and I was wondering, it's the first time I'm seeing this. So, and I know when I go over it today, I'll be gathering even more information from this chapter, and I pray the same for all of us. May we all leave blessed. With that, I'll just whisper a little word. Lord, please grant us all favor as we go through this chapter. May we embrace everything in our lives. Turn on the examination light in our lives, oh Lord, so we may see ourselves and see if we, by any means, is um, in the balance, is bringing disgrace to your name, is practicing health deform rather than health reform. We ask you just to help us and to touch our hearts. In Jesus' name we say thanks. Amen. All right, extremes in diet. And as Kenil said, I am probably one who is a living example of someone who was at one complete extreme in diet where I used to have things like curry goat with fried dumpling for breakfast, oxtail and rice and peas for dinner, jerk chicken for supper. Used to have wine, coffee, tea, and a very rich, unhealthy diet that almost took me out of the picture of life. But praise the Lord that He stepped in and delivered me, and here I am today, praying now that I have a balanced way of life. And I have been helping others, and I pray that I am in His side. I am doing the right thing, and I will continue to do so until He comes for us or pause me on the way. All right, so extreme in diets. We have a little outline here. We'll be covering some of these points, and we'll go through them. The value of a consistent course, and we'll start with that one. So it says many of the views held by Seventh-day Adventists differ widely from those held by the world in general. Those who advocate an unpopular truth should, above all others, seek to be consistent in their own life. They should not try to see how different they can be from others, but how near they can come to those whom they wish to influence, that they may help them to be to the position they themselves so highly prize. Such a course will commend the truths they hold. So I hope that is clear that we as health reformers, the idea is not to be a weirdo. We uphold truth and we also live according to the principles that we are teaching. All right. Those who are advocating a reform in diet should, by the provision they make for their own table, present the advantages of hygiene in the best light. They should so exemplify its principles as to commend it to the judgment of candid minds. There is a large class. Sorry, what? Okay, all right. There is a large class who will reject any reform movement, however reasonable, if it lays a restriction upon the appetite. And just to interject right there, I remember before I understood anything much about health, I remember going to a friend's house and she was cooking brown rice. And we wanted to go out and we had to wait for this brown rice. And I thought to myself, why she had to cook this rice that takes so long? So I was one of those who objected to healthy food, but that was because of my lack of knowledge. But her consistency was a message to me, especially when I was now ready to choose a path of life over death. Then her lifestyle came back to me as a picture. All right. They they consult taste instead of reason. Yes, and that was me, and the laws of health. By this class, all who leave the beaten track of custom and advocate reform will be opposed and accounted radical. Let them pursue ever so consistent a course. So I'll interject again. Now I was on my journey, but it's a journey. So you get there stage by stage. I remember, so I was vegetarian. And I remember someone mentioned something about persons who eat raw food or on a raw food diet. And I remember, listen, if I had a bat and you ate raw food, I probably would have beaten you over your head that day. I was so opposed to a raw food diet. And then I tell you, the Lord has a sense of humor because might have been about 2 or so months down the road. I was on a week of raw food. The Lord has his way of helping us, right? All right. So, say by this class, all who leave the beaten track of custom and advocate reform will be opposed and accounted radical. Let them pursue ever so consistent a course, but no one should permit opposition or ridicule to turn him from the work of reform or cause him to lightly regard it. So we must stand firm our grounds, but we must make sure we are walking in the path of correctness, right? He who is imbued with the spirit which actuated Daniel will not be narrow or conceited, but he will be firm and decided in standing for the right. In all his associations, whether with his brethren or with others, he will not swerve from principle, while at the same time he will not fail to manifest a noble, Christ-like patience. When those who advocate hygienic reform carry the matter to extreme, people are not to blame if they become disgusted. Too often, our religious faith is thus brought into disrepute, and in many cases, those who witness such exhibitions of inconsistency can never afterward be brought to think that there is anything good in the reform. These extremists do more harm in a few months than they can undo in a lifetime. In a lifetime. They are engaged in a work which Satan loves to see go on. Mercy. Now, Kenil, you asked a question at the beginning. How can we, make sure that we are on the right path in terms of health reform? It's a growing process. And it's a praying process. It is one that requires us to continually humble ourselves before the Lord because we can find ourselves going at high speed down the wrong road and doing more harm than good when our intention is to do good. So that is why we have to foster a humble spirit and a prayerful life and a contrite heart always before the Lord so he can open our ears, he can open our eyes, and he can give us understanding. And then also a soft heart that is willing to repent and feet that are swift to obedience. All right, it says, two classes have been presented before me. First, those who are not living up to the light which God has given them. And we know that's probably majority of our church. Secondly, those who are too rigid in carrying out their one-sided ideas of reform and enforcing them on others. When they take a position, they stand to it stubbornly and carry nearly everything over the mark. Have you ever seen a cow in the middle of the road? You better don't blow it. You can't move until him decide to move. The first class adopted the reform because someone else did it. No, there is danger. They did not obtain a clear understanding of its principles for themselves. Many of those who profess the truth have received it because someone else did. And for their life, They could not give the reason of their fate. This is why they are so unstable. Today they're on, tomorrow they're off. Today they're up, tomorrow they're down. They're not even sure what to eat because they have no proper foundation of why they are pursuing this. They're just following the crowd. So they go with the wind. This is why they're so unstable. Instead of weighing their motives in the light of eternity, instead of obtaining a practical knowledge of the principles underlying all their actions, instead of digging down to the bottom and building up on a right foundation for themselves, they are walking in the light of another's torch and will surely fail. Wow, sad. The other class take wrong views of the reform. They adopt too meager a diet. They subsist upon a poor quality of food, prepared without reference to the nourishment of the system. It is important that food be prepared with care, so that the appetite, when not perverted, can relish it. We have some beautiful images coming up soon. All right. Because we form principles, discard, because we, from principles, discard the use of those things which irritate the stomach and destroy health, the idea should never be given that it is of little consequence what we eat. I do not recommend an impoverished diet. Many who need the benefit of healthful living and from conscientious motives adopt what they believe to be such, are deceived by supposing that a meager bill of fare, prepared without painstaking and consisting mostly of mushes and so-called gems, heavy and sudden, is what is meant by a reformed diet. No. Some use milk and a large amount of sugar on mush, thinking that they are carrying out health reform, but the sugar and milk combined are liable to cause fermentation in the stomach and are thus harmful. The free use of sugar in any form tends to clog the system and is not unfrequently a cause of disease. Some think that they must eat only just such an amount and just such a quality, and confine themselves to 2 or 3 kinds of food. But in eating too small an amount, and that not of the best quality, they do not receive sufficient nourishment. And it is so sad because many a times you look at some persons who call themselves health reformers, you can see that you can look at them and see poor health, because we can see poor health comes out in the skin, it comes out in the eyes, it shows up, right? The symptoms show on the body. And it's sad when you can see that, and that's because this is when health reform becomes health deform. um
Indeed, Davina, what an amazing point. I mean, I myself, a lot of times people would say to me, yeah, I'm eating better now, I'm doing my best, and or they would ask me, what is this that I eat? Or, you know, intimating or suggesting that is just callaloo and rice, cabbage and rice. And I'm like, why would you think that? Matter of fact, the diet change has introduced me to a greater variety of food than before. So I'm so happy that you're touching on this point, because it's all around where people feel like if you switch over your diet, you should be eating a small variety or a small fare, and you thin out, and as you said, you can see it on people's looks. So I'm happy that you're touching this. Nourishment should still be, we should still eat from principle, which is to nourish and build up the system so that
exactly.
we can glorify God. Yeah.
Yes. And sometimes what happen is persons don't make food such a priority in their life where they put out the interest to develop new, beautiful, tasty, wholesome, creative dishes that we firstly, as human beings, we eat with our eyes. That's the first thing. We can look at a food, and if it doesn't look good, we can't eat it. We just can't get it down. We don't produce any digestive juices for it. But if something looks good, our mouth begins to water, we begin to salivate, and our body begin to produce the digestive enzymes ready to devour that food. So we must firstly ensure that our food looks good. And so 2 or 3 little pieces of something in the plate is really gonna look really impoverish. It's not gonna be appealing, and so yeah, we need to put that extra effort in. When you decide to go plant-based, go in your kitchen and pray. I remember when I just started out, I remember when I had to cook brown rice, and I go in the kitchen and I said, God, please teach me how to cook this rice. Because it was a different, it was different in terms of flavor to me when you compare it to white rice. So I really had to ask the Lord to teach me how to cook that rice. And I stayed in my kitchen and I experimented and developed recipes. And I remember after I got a good hang of it, and I developed lots of ways how to cook my brown rice for it to taste really good, where you could just eat it by itself with nothing else if you wanted to, that is. And then I remember going in the kitchen, the college campus kitchen, to cook something one day, and then a young lady said to me, "Have you got any recipes you can give me how to cook this brown rice?" She said, "My husband wants to go vegan, but he wants to eat the brown rice, but I have no clue how to cook it for it to taste good." So I shared some of my recipes with her, and then she had one recipe that she was using, and she also shared that with me. And it was just such a lovely experience. And today I could give you 100 different ways how to cook that brown rice, just make it like wow, wow, wow. So we've got to go in our kitchen, we've got to pray and ask God for help, because trust me, He is the master chef. All right. Narrow ideas and overstraining of small points have been a great injury to the cause of hygiene. And there may be such an effort at economy in the preparation of food that instead of a healthful diet, it becomes a poverty-stricken diet. What is the result? Poverty of the pov- poverty of the blood. I have seen several cases of disease most difficult to cure, which were due to impoverished diet. The persons thus afflicted were not compelled by poverty to adopt a meager diet, but did so in order to follow out their own erroneous ideas of what constitutes health reform. Day after day, meal after meal, the same article of food were prepared without variation until dyspepsia and general debility resulted. I have so seen that so often, Kenny. You have some persons, if you tell them that broccoli is a superfood, oh Lord, they eat broccoli every day, and it's like there's no other food out there. And they just cook it the same way, like there's no other recipes. But we have YouTube, we have these social media platform. You can simply just go in and type in um different recipes for broccoli, or how the Asians do broccoli, how the Spanish do broccoli, how the Jamaicans do broccoli. Just type that into YouTube and you'll see lots of recipes will pop up, or into Google, and put your spin on it. Try something different and put your spin on it to create variety in your kitchen and different lovely ways of preparing your meals, to create interest for your family and for your neighbors and for yourself. All right. Mistaken ideas in diet. So as you can see from the picture, some believe, that what we call a junk food vegan diet, they believe that once there's no animal products in it, then it's all good to go. But there is mistaken ideas in diet. So let's see what we're talking about here. Not all who profess to believe in dietetic reform are really reformers. With many persons, the reform consists merely in discarding certain unwholesome foods. They do not understand clearly the principles of health, and their tables are still loaded with harmful dainties, like the picture, uh, are far from being an example of Christian temperance and moderation. Another class, in their desire to set a right example, go to the opposite extreme. Some are unable to obtain the most desirable foods, and instead of using such things as would best supply the lack, they adopt an impoverished diet. Their food does not supply the elements needed to make good blood. Wow. Their health suffers. Their usefulness is impaired, and their example tells against rather than in favor of a reformed diet. So some take on this impoverished diet and they're saying health reform, health reform. And when you look at them, their eyes are sinking in holes. They've got dark circles around their eyes. They look sick. And it's always sad when I see someone who says health and they don't look healthy. They don't look right. I get very worried because I'm thinking, Lord, we can't afford to bring disgrace to your name. You know, we're not supposed to look like Hank Nail, or we're not supposed to look like a donut. You know, we're supposed to be glowing. Our skin is not supposed to be gray and dull. We're supposed to be glowing. We're supposed to be beaming with health. We should look we should look new. When persons see us, we should look new and we should look fresh, like we're stepping out of a magazine, you know. We should look like we've been airbrushed. All right. Others think that since health requires a simple diet, there need be little care in the selection or the preparation of food. Wrong. Some restrict themselves to a very meager diet, not having sufficient variety to supply the needs of the system, and they suffer in consequence. Have you ever gone to some person's house and every single morning is oats porridge? Is oats porridge, oats porridge, oats porridge? Or is banana porridge, and then in the evening you get boiled banana again? Oh, Lord, help us all. Those who have but a partial understanding of the principles of reform are often the most rigid. So you hear that? I'll repeat that. Those who have, so talk the things of yes. Those who have but a partial understanding of the principles of reform are often the most rigid and the most dangerous, I must add, right? Not only in carrying out their views themselves, but in urging them on their families and their neighbors. The effect of their mistaken reforms, as seen in their own ill health, and their efforts to force their views upon others give many a false idea of dietetic reform and lead them to reject it altogether. So yeah, many have turned their families away. I've seen it. I've seen it so many times, or I've heard persons have come to me, or they've come in the cooking course, and they're so glad for the cooking course because it literally they use it to win back their families. But many when they cook, their families don't even want to see the food, even no matter how hungry they are, they don't want to see the food. So you're on a right path when the food that you're preparing for yourself, your family is stealing it away from you, right? You can't cook enough. You just can't cook just for yourself. You've got to cook for them, even though they might be cooking their own pot, right? Because it should be so good, so appealing, so appetizing that they want it as well. I remember one Thanksgiving, there was this lady in America, you know, she called me, she asked me if I could give her some private lessons in preparing her Thanksgiving dinner because she's trying to go plant-based. So I taught her how to make the vegan turkey. I taught her how to make her Caribbean fruit cake, and I think it might have been those two things, right? And the whole shebang that comes with the dinner. Listen, she did it a few days before Thanksgiving, so she would have the time to do her family dinner. Before Thanksgiving comes, she had to do over hers again because her family ate her turkey and they ate her cake. And her husband declared he doesn't want any more real turkey again. He wants vegan turkey for his dinner every Thanksgiving. And she does it. It's now the tradition in her house. Thanksgiving in our house for our whole family is vegan turkey and vegan fruit cake. So there we go. That's how we ought to win our family. And in fact, right now, and this was a few years ago, but today her husband is actually on the detox program because he's now making his extra step in terms of adopting a whole plant-based lifestyle. So there, that's how it goes. That's how we ought to win our family. But we've got to put the effort in. We can't sit and expect it to magically come about like that. We've got to work at it, pray and go in the kitchen and experiment and try and get it wrong. I remember the first time I baked some Jamaican sweet potato pudding. Listen, not one of them could come out of the tin. Uh, but I didn't give up. I continued with it. I tried again, and the next set got a little better. And there were trials after that that went completely wrong, but I did not give up until I started a big business in the UK out of it. So don't give up and keep trying, but we've got to do our part to receive the blessings. All right. Those who understand the laws of health and who are governed by principle will shun the extremes, both of indulgence and of restrictions. Their diet is chosen not for the mere gratification of appetite, but for the upbuilding of the body. They seek to preserve every power in the best condition for the highest service to God and man. The appetite is under the control of reason and conscience, and they are rewarded with health of body and mind. So you see, God has a reward for when we are consistent and when we do the right things. While they do not urge their views offensively upon others, their example is a testimony in favor of right principles. These persons have a wide influence for good. And that's our desire. And that's what we should aim at. There is a real common sense in dietetic reform, real common sense. The subject should be studied broadly and deeply. And no one should criticize others because their practice is not in all things in harmony with his own, right? Because one size doesn't fit all either. It is impossible to make an unvarying rule to regulate everyone's habits. And no one should think himself a criterion for all. Not all can eat the same things. Foods that are palatable and wholesome to one person may be distasteful and even harmful to another. Some cannot use milk, while others thrive on it. Some persons cannot digest peas and beans, others find them wholesome. For some, the coarser grain preparations are good food, while others cannot use them. So let us not try to fit a square peg in a round hole, right? Urging our personal views. Okay, go ahead.
No, this is so powerful because this is so liable to happen. This is very liable to happen in families and the households where any dietetic reform is adopted. But I like how you bring out the real common sense of it all. I believe that God created this great variety of foods. You'll never find one set of food that alone has a certain nutrient. You'll
Exactly.
find it in yeah, you'll find it in so many other articles of food. And I
Exactly.
believe that reason is I might like something and my daughter just doesn't like it. And my son may like the taste of celery, but my daughter can't stand it. So we have to have that spirit of acceptance of the difference in
Yes.
palate, and even so, as the reader, as the writing says, that even harmful. Because I can eat something, but it doesn't trouble me, but it gives you a splitting headache. Because we're all individual and unique. So the common sense of it all is to see if something agrees with you, see if you like it, work from principle, and not so much from a dogmatic individual position to force upon everyone. I love it. Thank you for that.
Exactly. Perfect. Perfect. All right. Now, urging personal views. So I just have a little picture here where this person thought that, eating a smaller amount of food would, make her body look good. But then she realized in the long run that no, she was hurting herself more than anything else. right? Because it affected her hormones, not having enough calories and stuff like that. All right. So it says, those who have but a partial understanding of the principles of reform are often the most rigid, not only in carrying out their views themselves, but in urging them on their families and their neighbors. The effect of their mistaken reform, as seen in their own ill health and their efforts to force their views upon others, give many a false idea of dietetic reform and lead them to reject it altogether. Those who understand the laws of health and who are governed by principle will shun the extremes, both of indulgence and of restriction. Their diet is chosen. Why does it sound like I've read that already? So I'll continue anyway. Their diet is chosen not for the mere gratification of appetite, but for the upbuilding of the body. They seek to preserve every power in the best condition for the highest service to God and man. The appetite is under control of reason and conscience, and they are rewarded with health of body and mind. While they do not urge their views on offensively upon others, their example is a testimony in favor of right principles. These persons have a wide influence for good. That seemed like some slides here repeated. There is a real common sense. Let me move right on. But what about an impoverished diet? So let's go back to this picture here. Avoid an impoverished diet. So one or two items, or you make a soup with just a little bit of old stale vegetables that really should be thrown out. But what about an impoverished diet? I have spoken of the importance of the quantity and quality of food being in strict accordance with the laws of health. But we would not recommend an impoverished diet. I have been shown that many take a wrong view of the health reform and adopt too poor a diet. They subsist upon a cheap, poor quality of food prepared without care or reference to the nourishment of the system. So you have some persons, every day they'll make a vegetable soup and they will, some vegetables they're using, they go to the market and they buy, when the market throwing out some stuff because it's all what you call it now, all and dilapidated and all the nutrients have dried out of it and they're about to throw it out, they get those and they get them cheaper and they subsist on a diet like that. But no, definitely not good at all. That type of diet is not good. So you're putting in, or sometimes people have a fruit or so half of it rotten and then pare it down until them find one little kincha it will good look good, and that is the food. And when you look over there, so I see other fruits that they could have eaten, but nothing must be wasted. So no, in that respect, no, because you're eating stuff that can harm the system. No, it says it is important that the food should be prepared with care, that the appetite, when not perverted, can relish it, because we from principles discard the use of meat, butter, mince pies, spices, lard, and that which irritates the stomach and destroys health. The idea should never be given that it is of but little consequence what we eat. Right. So even though we put away the harmful stuff, we have to make sure that we are excising what is called temperance and the good stuff. Um, there are some who go to extremes. They must eat just such an amount and just such a quality, and confine themselves to two or three things. They allow only a few things to be placed before them or their families to eat. In eating a small amount of food, and that not of the best quality, they do not take into the stomach that which will suitably nourish the system. Poor food cannot be converted into good blood. An impoverished diet will impoverish the blood. And if the blood is impoverished, then you know that affects the entire living machinery. All right, continuing. Because it is wrong to eat merely to gratify perverted taste, it does not follow that we should be indifferent in regard to our food. It is a matter of the highest importance. No one should adopt an impoverished diet. Many are debilitated from disease and need nourishing, well cooked food. Health reformers, above all others, should be careful to avoid extremes. The body must have sufficient nourishment. We must not be afraid to eat, have a nice variety, you know, on our tables of what is going to be cooked, let it be well, properly cooked. What is going to be raw, may be fresh, and the ingredients popping up at us, not lettuce that look like it has been flagged, not vegetables that look like the bus ran over them, but they must look fresh and nice and crisp, still have their colors, not lettuce look like it have been washed in bleach water, you know. So let us who are health reformers really put that extra effort out to make sure that we are living up to what we preach. And firstly, we need to make sure that we are educated and we are continually educating ourselves in this light. And there are so many books and chapters in these health reform books that we need to read to make sure that, we are on the path, the right path.
Hi there, Davina.
Go ahead.
This, you know, being pe when I was like a meat, before my diet was reformed, let me put it that way, and I still have a long way to go. There was not that great interest in the preparation of food because you could
Ah.
always get something on the road which was more or less prepared to suit you.
Mm-hmm.
Or when you're home, you know, the rice and the chicken or the chicken foot and the or the liver, or all those things, that I would grow up and as a young man I used to imbibe. But the point you just brought out that because we now made the shift, it does not follow that we should continue just like that. I found out that if I continued like that, the food would be boring and bland. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So it actually then behoves us, if we're going to go for a change, that you said it earlier on, become more interested in
Mm-hmm.
food and its preparation and what is palatable and kinds of. So you're gonna have to have some style about you. You're gonna have to have some pizzazz, some creativity. If you can't just come to health reform and just say, let me know as an afterthought, try to prepare something because it just won't work. You're not gonna have to be interested in nourishment and food. So yeah.
Exactly. Because after a while, your family gonna get tired of having kalalua and cabbage and pop chow. You're gonna have to make different things for them. Like even yourself, you're gonna get tired of the cabbage, kalalua, and pop chow. You're gonna need something more because a lot of times when you turn the health way, and if you should go out and you need to stop at a restaurant to get something and you ask for vegan food, the most I have for you is some steamed cabbage. you know, it's
That
some
mean
steamed.
yeah, one more thing. And sometimes it's good to give the cook. In every home, there's more or less a designated person who does most of the cooking. I think sometimes it's good, if you can, to give the cook a break. Whenever you can give the cook a break,
Yes,
give the cook
yes,
a break, man. Because some persons after they've cooked all the time, they don't. But if you cook it, if Huzzy cooks it, or Uncle cooks it, or somebody else come home and try it, that little difference creates, that
yes.
kind of novelty for the person to receive it.
That's so true. And guess what? Different persons will have like a little recipe that is their favorite that is different from another person's one. So they'll create another interest, another variety will be added to the table. So you're not always eating your same food, especially when, sometimes you feel like you have run out of ideas of what to cook. It means it is time to incorporate another person in the kitchen who might have some fresh ideas. All right. Dear Brother Blanc, in the past, You have practiced health reform too rigorously for your own good. Once, when you were very sick, the Lord gave me a message to save your life. You have been too strenuous in restricting your diet to certain articles of food. While while I was praying for you, words were given me for you to set you in the right path. The message was sent that you were to allow yourself a more generous diet. The use of flesh meat was not advised. Directions were given as to the food to be taken. You followed the directions given, rallied, and are still with us. Hallelujah. Amen. I often think of the instructions then given you. I have been given so many precious messages to bear to the sick and the afflicted. For this I am grateful and I praise the Lord. So that was Brother Blanc. All right, so it says vary the menu. So I've got 100 pictures on this one slide. Vary the menu. Let me see if I can bold it up so you can see. So sometimes you might throw in a smoothie there. Sometimes you might have some fruits with your seeds and your nuts. Sometimes you might do some honey roasted seeds and nuts together. Sometimes you might have some ackee and tofu with some rice. Sometimes you might have a nice big salad and you make some lentil bologna to go on it. Sometimes you might have some bami with some something. And sometimes you might make yourself a nice flatbread and drizzle some molasses over it and have some fruits wrapped up inside of it. So, saying to you, vary the menu. Don't be a one-trick pony. Oh, looks delicious indeed. All right, we advise you to change your habits of living. But while you do this, we caution you to move understandingly. I am acquainted with families who have changed from a meat diet to one that is impoverished. Lord, and then guess what? Plant-based diet get the blame. Their food is so poorly prepared that the stomach loathes it. And such have told me that the health reform did not agree with them. You see what they're talking about? That they were decreasing in physical strength. Here is one reason why some have not been successful in their efforts to simplify their food. They have a poverty stricken diet. Food is prepared without painstaking, and there is a continual, what it? Sameness, a continual sameness. There should not be many kinds at any one meal. But all meals should not be composed of the same kinds of food without variation. Food should be prepared with simplicity, yet with a nicety, which will invite the appetite. You should keep grease out of your food. It defiles any preparation of food you may make. Eat largely of fruits and vegetables. All right, let's go over a few little things on this, right? You mustn't have too much different variety at one meal. So basically, one meal must not look like this, right? This is several different meals. So it shouldn't have, your plate should not look like a buffet. And then now it should not, it should not be composed of the same kinds of food without variation. So, sometimes you cook on Friday and you cook rice and peas and let's say some sweet and sour tofu with vegetables, and you eat that Friday and you eat it Sabbath. And then you eat it Sunday again because you did cook too much. And then Monday you still have and you eat it again. Wrong. Wrong, bang. That is, you're not getting any variety of nutrients there. You're having the same nutrients over the 4-day period. No, vary it up. So if you have too much, put some in a plastic bag and put it in the freezer. After you have Sabbath Friday and Sabbath on it, put the rest in some plastic bag or containers and put in the freezer. For another a day when you might not want to cook, you just draw for that one and reheat. But don't have the same thing for the whole week or too many days in the week, because you're not getting any variety of minerals from it to help to sustain the living machinery. Food should be prepared with simplicity yet. Yes, so the food must be nice. It must be simple. Oh Lord. I had a lady working with the lifestyle center recently. Boy, I tell you, I don't know how my head not full of gray hair. That woman cooked over the top. Every dish is over the top. It was just too much. You could never get a simple dish in here. You could never get a simple dish. There was one day when I asked one of my friend who doesn't live too far from me. I messaged her. I said, "Please, can I come for some of your dinner? I've just had enough of the overtop cooking." Ah, so simplicity, right? Simplicity is important in meals. So when you go to prepare one meal, you don't have to load it up with a whole heap of spice and ingredients and this and that. Just prepare a nice simple dish. Just keep it beautiful. Keep the vegetables nice and crisp and looking fresh, not looking overcooked like you forget them on the fire. But and when you're going into the kitchen to prepare your meals, think as well. Put some thought into it. Think colors, think textures, and think flavors, right? So they must complement each other in terms of flavor. And the colors, you need to have colors that will pop at you and will excite your appetite. And you need to have different textures, because if everything is just soft and mushy, after a time your face is gonna look so, you're not gonna want it. You want to have different textures. So when you put your fork in your plate, all right, you take up this and it's soft, and you take up this and it's firm, and you put 2 or 3 things on your fork at the same time with different textures. So think textures. All right. Where am I now? You should keep grease, right? You should keep grease out of your food. So grease. Oh, anybody wants to comment on that? Let me hear what we have to say. What is grease? What do we understand from the term grease? Is it talking about olive oil, coconut oil, or is it talking about, what is it talking about? Nobody? Can you? Gravy. Okay, all right. So somebody say gravy. All right. So
Yes, I stepped away for a moment, just
okay.
but I was hearing you all along. Okay,
All
yeah,
right.
grease. Grease, one of those things I said is gravy. But all the things that you've listed just now, I think those are healthy fats and oils. But some of us as Jamaicans, it have to have a whole heap of gravy, or it has to be greasy to have that moist feeling so that we can enjoy the relish. But that's not good.
All right. So let me tell you, in Ellen White time, Greece, and even still in today's society, Greece is when we use the animal fat. So I remember when I was growing up, right? Um, they used to take the skin off the chicken and fry it, and then that oil, or that is now that grease, that is actually the grease, that grease that is produced, they store it. And not just the chicken they used to take it off, but the pig as well. And that fat is kept to use to cook food, and then they reuse it and they reuse it and they reuse it until it can't use no more. All right. That is the grease that is being referred to here, that was in those days. We can use our olive oil in our food. We can use our healthy oils. We don't want to use the processed vegetable oils, because they are preserved with petroleum, and the process that they go through has made them become carcinogenic anyway to refine them. So you want to use oils that are cold pressed or mechanically extracted. So there goes. When you pick up a bottle of oil, read the back of it. Or sometimes it's on the front, but it is normally in the fine print. It should say cold pressed or mechanically extracted, right? That's the oil you want to use. All right. And I do not advise anyone to go and baptize any food in any oil, no matter how good an oil it is. No baptism of food in oil. All right. So grease, it defiles any preparation of food you may make. Eat largely of fruits and vegetables. So oftentimes we also underestimate the amount of fruits and vegetables that we really should be eating. Um, but yeah, fruits, that's what was Adam and Eve had in the Garden of Eden. The fruits, the vegetables, the seeds, the nuts, the grains. That's what they had. So many have misinterpreted health reform and have received perverted ideas of what constitutes right living. Some honestly think that a proper dietary consists chiefly of porridge. To eat largely of porridge would not ensure health to the digestive organs, for it is too much like liquid. So it's some persons, I mean, some of these fad diets that go around today where you're on a juicing diet forever and forever and forever. You're on a liquid diet. You're on a smoothie every morning to work. Every morning you make a smoothie. No. God has given us teeth. Right, mind you, some of us might no longer have our own teeth for whatever unfortunate situation, might have ate too much sweets when we were young, or something might have knocked them out. But God has given us teeth for a purpose. We ought to be chewing our foods. And I'm not saying juices don't have a place, but make sure they're being used in the right place and not the diet, not the lifestyle, not a juicing lifestyle. Because I tell you, I've had many come to me with stomach issues, and it's because they've been on too much of a liquid diet and this juice fad and stuff like that, a juice every morning or a smoothie every morning. No, eat your fruits, chew them up, use your mouth, use up your muscles in your mouth, use up your teeth to chew. You don't see the dogs drinking juice or the cows drinking juice, the horses drinking juice. We see them chewing. We ought to chew as well. You have erred and thought it was pride which led your wife to desire to have things more comfortable around her. She has been stinted and dealt closely with by you. She needs a more generous diet, a more plentiful supply of food upon her table. And in her house, she needs things as comfortable and convenient as you can make them. Things to make her work as easy as possible. But you have viewed matters from a wrong standpoint. You have thought that almost anything which could be eaten was good enough if you could live upon it and retain strength. You have pleaded the necessity of spare diet to your feeble wife. But she cannot make good blood or flesh upon the diet to which you could confine yourself and flourish. Some persons cannot subsist upon the same food upon which others can do well, even though it be prepared in the same manner. So, as we had said earlier, some persons might be able to eat a wheat, some cannot. So don't force another to eat wheat if you cannot. If they cannot, right? You eat it. Some persons might can't eat beans. Don't force them to eat it. Figure out another way to make lovely plant-based protein dishes for them instead of trying to force them to eat the beans. All right. And Kenny, if you have any comment or anyone have any comment on that, let me see what's in the something just Yeah, what a situation. Can you just imagine? Man about to kill him poor wife. You are in danger of becoming an extremist. Your system could convert a very coarse, poor diet into good blood. Your blood making organs are in good condition, but your wife requires a more select diet. Let her eat the same food which your system could convert into good blood, and her system could not appropriate it. She lacks vitality and needs a generous strengthening diet. She should have a good supply of fruit and not be confined to the same things from day to day. She has a slender hold of life. She is diseased, and the wants of her system are far different from those of a healthy person. So, indeed, what is for Tom might not be for Harry. So, we've got to consider everyone situation and not try to fit them in our own shoes. Consideration for individual needs. So as you can clearly see here, we have different sizes. So what the baby might need, clearly the young adult or the grandma might need something different. A little boy might need a little bit more than a little girl, etc. All right. I saw that you had mistaken notions about afflicting your bodies, depriving yourselves of nourishing food. These things lead some of the church to think that God is surely with you, or you would not deny self and sacrifice thus. But I saw that none of these things will make you more holy. Hear that? None of these things will make you more holy. The heathen do all this, but receive no reward for it. A broken and a contrite spirit before God is in his sight of great price. I saw that your views concerning these things are erroneous, and that you are looking at the church and watching them, noticing little things, when your attention should be turned to your own soul's interest. God has not laid the burden of his flock upon you. You think that the church is up on the background because they cannot see the things as you do, and because they do not follow the same rigid course which you think you are required to pursue. I saw that you are deceived in regard to your own duty and the duty of others. Some have gone to extremes in regard to diet. They have taken a rigid course and lived so very plain that their health has suffered. Disease has strengthened in the system, and the temple of God has been weakened. Mercy. Temple of God has been defiled. Look at that. I saw that God does not require anyone to take a course of such rigid economy as to weaken or injure the temple of God. There are duties and requirements in his word to humble the church and cause them to afflict their souls. And there is no need of making process and manufacturing duties to distress the body in order to cause humility. All this is outside of the word of God. The time of trouble is just before us, and then stern necessity will require the people of God to deny self and to eat merely enough to sustain life. But God will prepare us for that time. In that fearful hour, our necessity will be God's opportunity to impart his strengthening power and to sustain his people. You ever got some people house yet? And boy, when you see the food that they share for themselves, you're afraid to take any from them because you feel like you're gonna rob them if you give you one dumpling out of it. Because it is so meager. Time of trouble they create for themselves before the time. Alright, those who labor with their hands must nourish their strength to perform this labor. And those also who labor in word and doctrine must nourish their strength. For Satan and his evil angels are warring against them to tear down their strength. They should seek rest of body and mind from wearing labor when they can, and should eat of nourishing, strengthening food to build up their strength. For they will be obliged to exercise all the strength they have. I saw that it does not glorify God in the least for any of his people to make a time of trouble for themselves. There is a time of trouble just before God's people, and he will prepare them for that fearful conflict. We have been reminded. So, not to be the cause of a time of trouble. That was that. When health reform becomes health deform. So when we create foods for ourselves, where sometimes all we get fed up by it. Look at that lady. Can't go no further. I have something to say in reference to extreme views of health reform. Health reform becomes health deform, a health destroyer when it is carried to extremes. You will not be successful in sanitariums where the sick are treated if you prescribe for the patients the same diet you have prescribed for yourself and your wife. I assure you that your ideas in regard to diet for the sick are not advisable. The change is too great. While I would discard flesh meat as injurious, something less objectionable may be used, and this is found in eggs. Do not remove milk from the table or forbid its being used in the cooking of food. The milk used should be procured from healthy cows and should be sterilized. But now we know that we don't have such, right? Healthy cows and healthy chickens. Um, but you use good plant-based milk with a high percentage of protein. So I will say this, a lot of persons are gravitating towards almond milk because there's so many bad press out there about soy milk. But I can tell you what you need is a good soya milk that is organic, that is non-GMO, and that is unsweetened, right? And that's a good soya milk with a good percentage of protein in it, because the truth is, I haven't got any near me, but I would have shown you the back of the box of almond milk. It has something like 2.2% almond in it, and that's when you find a good one with a lot of almond. Most you're getting is like 2.2%. So it's really a lot of additives and stuff like that that is in it that makes it look so nice and white and creamy. You want good quality plant-based milk, or you can make it yourself. But I'm gonna say this. When we become plant-based and you have a family, there are certain things, yes, you want to make, but you can't make everything yourself unless you have staff that helps you in the kitchen. Then you can say, okay, so we're gonna make milk, and you make bottles of milk, and you know, different types of milk for your family. But some things we have to buy. So if you have to buy milk, of course, if it is you alone, it is probably easy. You can make whatever you want, okay? But when you have other people making for, and you have especially children, and they just want a cup of milk to drink, you're not gonna go starving them. Um, you can buy some milk, but look for good quality. Look for organic milk. Look for non-GMO. Look for unsweetened, or if it is sweetened, sweetened with apple juice, right? So you have some that are actually sweetened with apple juice. So you have to look for good quality, and the least amount of ingredients written on the box, the better it is.
Indeed. And Davina,
Go
that's a,
ahead.
that's a I like your clarification, because the book did talk about eggs and milk. And from the time that that was written compared to now, what
Yes,
the industrial situation and the picture is much different as it pertains
completely
to like
different. Yeah,
milk. Back in her day, most of those cows were grass fed. You
grass
know,
fed and free range.
And free range, yeah, they could roam about and be natural. These cows nowadays, they are corn fed, number one. They're given bovine growth hormone, number two. They
Mm-hmm.
allow certain amount of pus to be in the milk before they say
Mm.
that it's beyond the upper level of what is, what can be contaminating.
Oof.
Milk is no pasture. It's milk now that you'll pick up from the supermarket shelf is a pasteurized soup and is not sanitized. It's something that is not even recognizable. And so it is one of the most allergenic
Mm.
foods just because of that. So, and not only allergenic, but also in the book, the China study, the protein in milk has been shown to be not carcinogenic, but a cancer promoter. All right. So it's much different now. And if you can get the eggs back then, fowls used to just be fowls. They could
Yeah.
have their life and they could walk about and scratch, and they were free range, healthy fowls if they are healthy. But the ones nowadays is mainly just layers who are cooped up, and whatever sickness they have, it's liable to be passed on to the human being. So that clarification was very much needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
And
you.
in other parts of the book, she did mention that a time would come when we wouldn't be able to use eggs and milk anymore. And that time is definitely now. All right. So I have something to say in reference to extreme views of health reform. Health reform becomes health deform. Oh, I've read that already, haven't I? Those who take an extreme view of health reform are in danger of preparing tasteless dishes, absolutely tasteless. This has been done over and over again. The food has become so insipid as to be refused by the stomach. The food given the sick should be varied. They should not be given the same dishes over and over and over again. I have told you what I have because I have received light that you are injuring your body by a poverty-stricken diet. I must say to you that it will not be best for you to instruct the students as you have done in regard to the diet question, because your ideas in regard to discarding certain things will not be for the help of those who need help. So look at that. This diet reform more likely to kill others than to save them. Brother and Sister Blank, I have all confidence in you, and I greatly desire that you may have physical health in order that you may have perfect soundness spirituality. It is the lack of suitable food that has caused you to suffer so keenly. You have not taken the food essential to nourish your frail physical strength. You must not deny yourself of good, wholesome food. Have you ever seen some reformers and them just look so? You know, that's them not eating properly. They read a little bit of information and they run with it. So very, they always say a little bit of knowledge is dangerous. It is. And they bring disgrace to the ministry. They are hurting themselves and they're just standing in the ways of sinners because they're blocking others from coming forward to health reform because of how they look. At one time, doctor tried to teach our family to cook according to health reform as he viewed it, without salt or anything else to season the food. Well, I determined to try it, but I became so reduced in strength that I had to make a change, and a different policy was entered upon with great success. I tell you this because I know that you are in positive danger. Food should be prepared in such a way that it will be nourishing. It should not be robbed of that which the system needs. Mm. Yes, so some persons, Sometimes when they have high blood pressure, they don't cook with salt. And every food is really insipid, really, really, really insipid. Just the look of it alone just make you feel, ugh. Um, no, that's not how we reverse blood pressure. That's not how we reverse high blood pressure by punishing yourself, not eating and enjoying food and not cooking food properly. Um, there are other ways to do it. And not only that, but persons who do that will find that they're doing that for years and the blood pressure still high. So clearly that way is not working. But they don't see a reason to change even though it's not working. So it's a little sign of madness. The Lord calls upon brother and sister blank to reform, to take periods of rest. It is not right for you to take burdens as you have done in the past. Unless you take heed, you will sacrifice that life which is so precious in the sight of the Lord. Ye are not your own, for you are bought with a price. Therefore, glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. Do not go to extremes in regard to the health reform. Some of our people are very careless in regard to health reform. But because some are far behind, you must not, in order to be an example to them, be an extremist. You must not deprive yourself of that class of food which makes good blood. Your devotion to true principles is leading you to submit yourself to a diet which is giving you an experience that will not recommend health reform. This is your danger. When you see that you are becoming weak physically, it is essential for you to make changes. And at once, put into your diet something you have left out. It is your duty to do this. Get eggs of healthy fowls. Use these eggs cooked or raw. Drop them uncooked into the best unfermented wine you can find. This will supply that which is necessary to your system. Do not for a moment suppose that it will not be right to do this. All right, so let's go through a little thing because now we know we can't eat egg, neither cook, worse raw, right? Because it increases even the risk of prostate cancer these days. It is riddled with diseases itself. But what can you use instead of the egg? So egg in the unfermented wine, which is a lovely bottle of grape juice. So for those in Jamaica, you can get a lovely bottle of Concord um, Welch's Concord grape juice or Welch's red grape juice. That is the one that says 100% pure, not the one that says juice cocktail. So read them carefully. Don't pick it up fast. Stop, pause, read several times before you leave the store. Make sure you're getting either the Concord, the Welch's Concord, 100% juice, or the Welch's red grape juice. Get that. Instead of the egg, raw egg, what could you put in that to make the blood booster? You use a good quality, unsweetened, non-GMO organic soya milk with that, and you will get the blood booster that will build the blood up really quickly. All right. What else can you use in your overall diet if you can't use eggs? Get your beans in your diet on a daily basis. Get your seeds in your diet on a daily basis. Get your nuts in your diet on a daily basis. These are foods that are rich in protein, and things like quinoa as well is a good source of protein. These will replace the eggs and the meat that have been removed from the diet. With your beans, you want to make sure that you are soaking them overnight, or at least for 6 to 8 hours. You soak them, drain the water off, wash it off well, and then you slow cook your beans. Notice I did not say pressure cook, I said slow cook. All right, until they're nice and tender. And once your beans are cooked, run with it. Hundreds of ways you can prepare the beans. All right, just like how you used to do up the corned beef or the mackerel, where you cook up your onion and the garlic and your tomato and thing like that. Once your beans is boiled, you can do it up like that. You can drain some of the water off and use just the beans, and the lentils goes nice like that. Tastes just like corned beef when you do it like that. Obviously, you can always do up your beans in some coconut milk. You can always do up your beans in some tomato and a little browning. What's the difference if it is slow cook or pressure cook? All right, so we are advised in councils to slow cook it. And I'm not even, can't remember now, to be honest with you, what's the difference. But when you slow cook it, I think it releases some extra gas that would, and sugars that would contribute to bloating and other digestive disorders. And when you pressure cook it, obviously it doesn't get the chance to do that. And but there are probably other things, but I don't remember everything now offhand. But maybe I could get back to Kenny with some information he could share with you at the next meeting. All right, so let me get back to my slide. Um, Okay, yeah, so these eggs, yeah, I was saying replace them with your beans, your nuts, and your seeds, but we just need to find creative ways. Nuts, we use just a small portion of nuts. Don't overdo nuts. I was talking to a young man the other day who is making some changes to his diet, and he consumed 3 pounds of almonds in 2 days. That's that's just gone swing to another extreme there. So I've got to do some cooking lessons, etc., with him so he can understand. All right, but look at variety of ways how you can prepare. You can use these to make dishes. You can make loaves, you can make burgers, you can make meatballs, you can put them in your beans, you can put your beans even once it is cooked, you can put it in your smoothies, you can put it in your soups, you can put it in so many things. You can make cake with it, you can make cheese. Huh. The dips, it does not stop here. Sandwich meat, it does not stop here. It is endless, the variety of stuff that you can do. All right. We appreciate your experience as a physician, and yet I say that milk and eggs should be included in your diet. These things cannot at present be dispensed with, and the doctrine of dispensing with them should not be taught. You are in danger of taking too radical a view of health reform and of prescribing for yourself a diet that will not sustain you. And I may add as well that you need to, as a plant based person, we need to have about 3 servings of beans per day. And a serving is about a quarter cup, or a cup of soya milk is a serving of bean. Um, so how do you get that 3 servings in? A cup of plant-based milk is one way that you can use in, let's say you make a cheesecake to go with your breakfast, or you just have a nice warm cup of milk with some ginger in it and some mint leaf in it, or some carob in it, or some dandelion in it. You make a nice warm cup of tea. That's one way you get a cup in. Um, and with your breakfast, you can use some lentil to make a pancake, or you can make a flat bread with your whatever your beans in it. And then when it comes to your dinner, you're having a nice big salad and you have a nice big bowl of beans that you stew up, that going with some quinoa or something like that as well. So get your beans in your diet, and this will really help with your hormone, your overall energy, your overall health, health. Beans plus tastes good, rich in fiber, so it helps keep the bowels going as well. All right, so next slide. I do hope that you will heed the words I have spoken to you. It has been presented to me that you will not be able to exert the most successful influence in health reform unless in some things you become more liberal to yourself and to others. The time will come when milk cannot be used as freely as it is now used. But the present time is not the time to discard it. And eggs contain properties which are remedial agencies in counteracting poisons. And while warnings have been given against the use of these articles of diet in families where the children were addicted to, yes, steeped in habits of self abuse, yet we should not consider it a denial of principle to use eggs of hens which are well cared for and suitably fed. Ha! Oh dear. I have no clue how many slides I've got left here. God calls upon those for whom Christ died to take proper care of themselves and set a right example to others. My brother, you are not to make a test for the people of God upon the question of diet, for they will lose confidence in teaching that are strained to the farthest point of extension. The Lord desires his people to be sound on every point in health reform, but we must not go to extremes. The reason for Dr. Blanc poor health is his overdrawing on his bank stock of health and then failing to replace the amount drawn out by wholesome nutritious, palatable food. My brother, devote your whole life to him who was crucified for you. But do not tie yourself down to a meager diet, for thus you misrepresent health reform. While working against gluttony and intemperance, we are to remember the means and appliances of gospel truth, which commend themselves to sound judgment. In order to do our work in straight, simple lines, we must recognize the conditions to which the human family are subjected. God has made provisions to those who live in the different countries of the world. Those who desire to be co workers with God must consider carefully how they teach health reform in God's great vineyard. They must move carefully in specifying just what food should and should not be eaten. The human messenger must unite with the divine helper in presenting the message of mercy to the multitude God would save. With this, I will pause here. I think is my time up, or I can go to another one. All right, I'll move quickly through this one. We are to be brought into connection with the masses. Should health reform be taught them in its most extreme form, harm would be done. We ask them to leave off eating meat and drinking tea and coffee. This is well. But some say that milk also should be given up. This is a subject that needs to be carefully handled. There are poor families whose diet consists of bread and milk, and if they can get it a little, a little fruit. All flesh food should be discarded, but vegetables should be made palatable with a little milk or cream or something equivalent. The poor say when health reform is presented to them, what shall we eat? We cannot afford to buy the nut foods. As I preach the gospel to the poor, I am instructed to tell them to eat that food which is most nourishing. I cannot say to them, you must not eat eggs or milk or cream. You must use no butter in the preparation of food. The gospel must be, oops, sorry. The gospel must be preached to the poor, and the time has not yet come to prescribe the strictest diet. All right. So in light of what can somebody around you want to introduce a health reform to them, but we know that today the eggs and stuff like that is really going to cause harm. Can we encourage them to grow their own chicken and on natural things, or is it that nuts and so are more available now and are even cheaper than they used to be? I think they're much more available now, and I think they're much cheaper than they used to be back then. And then we have a whole variety of beans now that we never even had before. Because once upon a time, when I was growing up, I didn't know what was lentils. I didn't know chickpeas. You know, in Jamaica, we know gungo and we know red peas and, you know, broad bean if they use it in your family. But it used to be very limited. But now we have a wide variety where you can have a different bean every single day of the week and you still don't exhaust all that you can get in the local market to buy. So And beans are cheap and cheerful. Plus, we can plant them ourselves, and they can grow on rocks, they can grow in pots, they can grow in any little corner, out of any little crack at the side of the house. They can grow, and we can have beans to feed our families. But God, and not only that, but the to prepare these now are also so easy. The food should be made appetizing. So I'm just moving through quickly. The food should be made appetizing. So when we prepare meals, as you can see, this is one of my breakfasts here, and I'm just doing it for myself. Not doing it for anybody, but I am the daughter of the Most High King, so I treat myself like a little princess, right? So when I prepare my food, I eat with my eyes too. Right. So, when you make your own food, prepare it nicely. Worse when you make it for others. Put the effort in it to present it to them nice, right? Sometimes people go to these expensive restaurants, the food don't even taste good, but just the way how the chef put it on the plate, then we pay how much money for it, and them eat the little bit of food, and when them don't eat, them still hungry, you know. But then we go back there, that same restaurant, go eat again because of the presentation. So, health reformers, above all others, should be careful to shun extremes. The body must have sufficient nourishment. Okay, yes, it makes a world of a difference. The body must have sufficient nourishment. We cannot subsist upon air merely. Neither can we retain health unless we have nourishing food. Food should be prepared in a good order so it is palatable. A diet lacking in the proper element of nutrition brings reproach upon the cause of health reform. We are mortal and must supply ourselves with food that will give proper nourishment to the body. I say amen to that. Let me move on to the next section. All right, so yeah, there is a little part that I wanted to read here. Some in abstaining from milk, eggs, and butter have failed to supply the system with proper nourishment, and as a consequence, have become weak and unable to work. Thus, health reform is brought into disrepute. The work that we have to the work that we have tried to build up solidly is confused with strange things that God has not required, and the energies of the church are crippled. But God will interfere to prevent the result of these two strenuous ideas. The gospel is to harmonize the sinful race, it is to bring a rich and poor together at the feet of Jesus. Amen. The time will come when we may have to discard some of the articles of diet we now use, such as milk and creams and eggs, but it is not necessary to bring upon ourselves perplexity by premature and extreme restrictions. Wait until the circumstances demand it and the Lord prepares the way for it. And as we can see now, He has definitely prepared the way because, as I said, the seeds are much more available. And not only that, but can I tell you this, that the ones that we get to buy in the shops, we can sprout them and grow them because I sprout them. I sprout my chia seed, I sprout my sesame seed, I sprout the sunflower seed. They can always sprout it and grown, and we can harvest them ourselves. So have a little land, dig it up, plant up some of these sprouted seeds and grow them. All right. Salt, make sure we're using salt in our food. There was one of the times when Sister White said the salt that she took out because the doctor recommended it, she felt so weak. And there's a whole variety of salts that we can use. So we've got the sea salt, we've got the pink Himalayan salt, we've got the black Himalayan salt, which is also called egg salt, or calamanac is the scientific name. Smells like a boiled egg, right? Because it is rich in sulfur. We've got Celtic salt, which is like a wet grayish looking one. You've got other salts as well, and then you've got some salts that chefs put together, you know, to make some fancy stuff. But lots of salts are out there, so use up our salt. The important thing is we're exercising and we have a balanced diet. So, harmful influence of extremists, sometimes extreme persons who are extreme, as we say, they cause more harm than good. And good work that we are putting in place goes up in flame because of extreme views. And while we would, I think, and then you have urging personal opinions and personal tests on others. So we sort of covered that before. What you might be able to eat and you're okay with it. Another person might not be able to do it. So don't open their mouth and gag them with your food, right? Look at ways how you can prepare different things. Maybe you have children that are allergic to nuts and you'd love for them to eat the nuts, but they can't eat it. Look at ways how you can make their seeds tasty. Or maybe it's not even like they're allergic to nuts. Maybe they just don't like the dry nuts, them. Simples, right? How can you make it nice and tasty for them? I throw the nuts in my pot. I put on a big pot of salt and I warm it. I make it hot. And then I throw my nuts in that big pot of hot salt on the fire, and I keep stirring them inside of it until they get nice and toasty and crisp. And then I just sift it. So I sift out the salt and I have just my nuts and I leave it cool. And then it's nice and crispy salted nuts. There goes. So I buy the nice raw nuts, or sometimes I throw them in my pot, throw my nuts and my seeds in my pot with and I dice up some coconut, some dry coconut with that as well. And then I put some honey in it and I just caramelize it down a little bit and then spread it on a plate that is either wet or have a little oil, grease with a little oil, put it on it and let them cool. And I have some nice little droplets. So when I do that, I tell you, I have to take out some for myself and hide them in my room. But staff, everybody, not stop eat them out. So let us not force others to have unpalatable food, where in some cases we have food just boiled with water. That is not good, right? So it says error on the side of people, preferably to opposite extreme. So let's see what this is saying, and then we wrap it right here, wrap it up. Brother and Sister Blank carried the matter of indulgence in eating to extreme, and the institute became demoralized. Now the enemy would push you into the opposite extreme if he could, to have a poverty stricken diet. Be careful to keep level heads and sensible ideas. Seek wisdom from heaven and move understandingly. If you take extreme radical positions, you will be obliged to back out, sorry. You'll be obliged to back down. And then, however conscientious you may have been, you have lost confidence in your own sound judgment. And our brethren and unbelievers will lose confidence in you. Be sure to go no faster than you have positive light from God. Take no man's ideas, but move intelligently in the fear of the Lord. If you err, let it not be in getting as far from the people as possible, for then you cut the thread of your influence and can do them no good. Better err on the side of the people than altogether away from them, for there is hope in that case that you can carry the people with you, but there is no need of error on either side. You need to go into the water or into the fire, but take the middle path, avoiding all extremes. Do not let it appear that you are one sided, ill balanced managers. Do not have a meager, poor diet. Do not let anyone influence you to have the diet poverty stricken. Have your food prepared in a healthful, tasteful manner. Have your food prepared with a nice tea that will correctly represent health reform. The great backsliding upon health reform is because unwise minds have handled it and carried it to such extreme that it has disgusted in place of converting people to it. I have been where these radical ideas have been carried out. Vegetables prepared with only water and everything else in like manner. This kind of cookery is health deformed, and there are some minds so constituted that they will accept anything that bears the features of rigorous diet or reform of any kind. So with that, I'm glad I found this slide. We have some school of thought out there that they're trying to be so healthy that they're saying frying water. Foolishness. I'm not saying go and baptize your food in oil, right? But use good quality oil. Every oil has what is called a smoke temperature, meaning it when it gets to a certain point, called smoke point. When it gets to a certain point, it starts smoking, and then the oil is no longer good. When you're gonna prepare something, if you have to saute something, saute it on low heat. Don't leave the oil to get hot before you put the item in it. And you use a oil with a high smoke temperature, not olive oil. We don't cook with olive oil, right? So it doesn't matter what they say, it's a smoke temperature for olive oil. Don't cook with olive oil. You use it as a finishing oil. But your coconut oil, if you're in Jamaica, your rice bran oil, there is one called rice bran oil, which is very good. Your sesame seed oil, these are oils that can be used to cook with, that has got high smoke temperature, right? Smoke point that you can use to prepare something. Saute some nice vegetables. Pan fry a little burger. Not saying go and eat fried food every day. Avocado oil, that's not bad. That's not bad. But do your research and understand what is called smoke point. Understand at what temperature, how you can use that oil if you want to cook something. And don't go baptizing the food now, in the oil. But it doesn't mean you need to eat everything boiled. Because that way we put people off, and even we ourselves struggle. And that's why you have so many start the road of health reform and backslide, right? Are they hiding around the corner and eating what they shouldn't eat because they're depriving themselves in front of others? Foolishness, false pride. Be sensible and be balanced in eating and drinking. My brethren, I would have you temperate in all things, but be careful that you do not strain the point on or run our institution into such a narrow channel that it comes out to a point. You must not you must not fall into every man's notions, but be level-headed, calm, trusting in God. And I think, oh yeah, so that's the last slide. So that was covering extremes in diet. Thank you very much for listening. I am Davina Gale, and it was a pleasure. I have learned a lot. I hope you have also.